Welcome to BizTech's Jobs and Career Show. Now, this show we bring HR experts and industry leaders to give you insights into the job market across the region. Who's hiring, who's not, what are the skill sets are in demand, how do you stand out from other candidates, and also what sort of solutions are out there to help you as a company hire better. Now, today, our guests are Huang, co-founder and CEO of Pulsify, and Peter Yoong, founder of Pulsify. Pulsify is a HR technology company whose solutions use predictive analytics and AI to drive organizations' talent acquisition and management strategies. Now, welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Nice to meet you.
Now, gentlemen, what inspired both of you to start Pulsify?
So Jay and I working in careers for many years already. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for the past 20 plus years. And through our journey, I think what we learned is that all organizations, whether small or large, young or established, are struggling with hiring, retaining people, and developing their people, right? At the same time, what we realize that a lot of people actually don't look forward to work on Mondays. And there must be a reason for that, right? So this is a big problem that we see needs to be solved. And our vision is to use data to help people better understand themselves and organizations better understand their people so that the people and these organizations can achieve their full potential.
Okay, now Jay, I want to ask you, what are the specific gaps and the pain points that your solutions address?
So coming about it from an organization perspective, putting ourselves in the shoes of a business leader or let's say HR person, generally you're looking to solve a similar problem, which is how do we hire better and faster, for example, and how do we help to motivate and develop the people that we already have. When we dive into this hire better and faster, you realize a common problem is that some organizations are dealing with a lot of candidates who come in, who apply, a lot of applicants, and for each one, there could be multiple data points that they need to look into. For example, we look at resumes. Some organizations make candidates go through personality tests or even video interviews nowadays with a lot of remote hiring. So number one is just going through all that volume, and number two actually is to make a good decision out of that volume. Because as we all know, humans actually aren't that great in dealing with too much data. So when we give them, hundreds, thousands, or even 10,000 candidates to deal with, it just all crumbles. So that's really one big pain. The other one is about employees. We find that many organizations struggle to actually help each individual realize their potential. And I think that is because each person has a very different profile in terms of strengths and development areas. And actually takes a lot of bandwidth and focus to help somebody get there because each person's development path is different. So the question then is, how do we actually use data to make all that scalable such that you don't need human to manually one by one do talent management and help each person realize where they should be. So I would say for organizations, really it boils down to people, and it's really end-to-end thing from when before they're hired to when they start and then to throughout the time they're in the organization.
Okay, to address those pain points and gaps, tell us a little bit about your products and services.
Right, sure, let me take that. So our main offering is called a People Data Platform. It may not sound familiar to you because actually it's not a common word used in the industry, but it's something that we came up with and we believe we're pioneers in. What does People Data Platform do? The end goal really is to address what I said earlier before, which is how do you help companies hire better and faster and make sharper decisions to help to motivate and develop their people. And when I say all these things, what I mean is, for example, we help organizations to hire 90% right most of the time. We help them to be able to predict that, okay, 80-90% of the time I get it right in terms of predicting specific attitudes and behaviors at workplace, whether people perform, and also in terms of identifying things like high potential and culture fit. Now, how do we do that? The platform does a few things. I think the first one really is about unifying various kinds of people data. And by people data, I mean resumes. There could be various kinds of psychometric assessments, video interviews, employee records. We provide assessments as well to gather this information, but more importantly, provide an agnostic platform for organizations to put all this data in one place, because in most organizations today, they're all over the place. The second thing is about using all the data to power predictive models. And why predictive models is because you want to be able to say, for example, what causes people in certain roles to actually succeed by analyzing the people who are great and the people who are not so great, for example. And this could be very specific to each role, to each organization, or each industry. And using all the data, then we can also predict how each person is likely to perform against that desired success, as well as even very behavioral driven things like, would I see good leadership, teamwork, communication, adaptability in specific people. And once we know so much about people and their fit to certain roles and culture, we can start to make recommendations. So for example, out of 0 to 10, can I give this person a score 8 out of 10 to say that, I recommend you interview this person and potentially hire, or I can say, okay, for culture fit, not so good, these are some areas we need to work on. And for existing employees, we can even recommend very personalized development steps and content.
I'm gonna get your insights, Pete. Give us an example of how the software actually helps your customers. So give us some specific examples.
So if you look at it, I think a baseline of where Pulsify is going towards is building AI to help companies make better decisions. And the focus is on quality. So for example, if you look at the case of Nestle, in benchmarking what is working within their company and who are the good hires and the top performers, and again, what are the gaps of people who don't perform, we built an algorithm to help them in hiring. And in terms of that benchmark, it was qualified, and 90%, 97% of the people that we qualified or we ranked who were potentially top performers turn out to be top performers. From speed and efficiency, it's about quality as well.
Okay, so you talk about speed and efficiency. Can you quantify the time and monetary savings? Could either of you quantify the time and monetary savings which you claim to have achieved for your clients?
Sure, I think we can do it from a percentage basis. I think generally what we found is that we can cut up to 70% of the time in the entire recruiting process, man hours. And why is that? It's because now a lot of that screening is done by our platform rather than having humans read through resumes, analyze psychometric assessment reports. So that is actually 70% reduction in time taken, so that the time can be focused on interviewing, right? Or even convincing candidates, why should you join us? And on that aspect, we're also able to cut maybe up to 40% of interviewing time. Because in the past, for every 5 candidates in interview, you find that a couple of these people just aren't right. And then within 5 minutes, you really want the interview to end. But what we do is to reduce that happening. So most of the time when you interview somebody, it's a person that's really highly qualified and highly fit.
In that case, one of the key challenges with this sort of models is the fact that you tend to screen out based on algorithm. What happens with left field candidates who don't fit a standard template? So let me give you an example. So someone, for example, who you're recruiting for a bank and your software goes through these models, and then there is this person who basically worked in the telecommunications industry and the tobacco industry, but actually has all the right skill sets to work in marketing in the bank. How do you account for a person like that?
Thanks for asking this question, Brian, because actually it's really important to talk about this, which is why we are different. And I think number one is about how we want to holistically understand each person, not just skills, but also soft traits, like you mentioned, a lot of it related to personality, to their values. So we really look at the whole picture to be able to come up with a recommendation. And if, in the old way, if you only looked at what a person did before, sales in the bank, obviously this person wouldn't have cut it. But because we look at all the soft skills that come to the table, we can say that, hey, actually, this person has a lot of what you need, even though the person didn't work in the bank. So maybe they don't get the highest score ever, because compared to somebody who's working in the bank and has all those skills, a lot better, but this person could come in as a close second. So there are many times whereby we've actually been able to help customers to look at it differently. With Nestle, we had this really good example. They were actually looking to hire a certain role in human resources, and generally we either look for somebody who's done HR before or trained in HR related field. And then, interestingly speaking, a platform came across this candidate who was a biochemistry major. Okay, but like as you said, Brian, the soft skills look really good. So we actually highly recommended Nestle, please interview and see what happens. So they interviewed and they actually hired her, and she was the best HR hire for the year.
Now, who are your, Peter, who are your key customers currently? And do you only focus, when I looked at your website, you seem to have very large enterprise customers, but is that your primary focus?
Yes, one of the reasons is that we are a data company and our algorithms become much stronger when there's volume. And again, with large companies, the volumes are much larger. So we solve a bigger problem. So yes, our key target customers include large global MNCs and large local corporates. Guys like Nestle, Reckitt, Heineken, KPMG, and large local corporates like Singtel, Malaysia Airlines, UOB, etc.
Pete, what is your business model? Do you charge as a normal enterprise on a per seat basis, or what is your charge model like?
We are an enterprise SaaS, and it's typically by number of recruits or number of people within the company that we're profiling.
Okay. Now, Jay, you are in a space which is very crowded. I mean, there's a plethora of solutions out there that you need to either work with or replace. Who do you see as your direct competition, and what makes Pulsify unique? Why should I buy you if I was a HR director of a large company?
Yes. So like I said, Brian, so our offering is people data platform, and we haven't come across any company in the world who has the same approach as us, right? And to be honest with you, in the early years of our company, not many people in the industry even got what we're trying to do in terms of bringing all the data together and being able to have powerful central models that can guide decision making every step of the HR journey. Because most people tend to look at it as smaller problems, like I need help hiring, or I need help training my people, I need help to engage my people. So what happens then, even though our platform has a pretty good vision, we end up competing with smaller players in each of these areas. So for example, there are various applicant tracking systems and hiring solutions that we have to compete with.
Yeah, correct. So you've got your things like SuccessFactors, which has an applicant tracking module. You have various other like Connexa and things like that who also have that. Yes. So how do you fit into this whole equation?
Yeah, exactly. So if we were to compete with those guys, it wouldn't make sense. Actually, that's not what we are built to do, right? So applicant tracking system, for example, they run the process really well. But for us, it's not so much focused on the process, but focused on the analytics. So what happens then is we end up partnering these companies to be able to give a better solution. So yes, we partner them. So with SuccessFactors, for example, we actually integrated into their system. And somehow, over the line, over the years, 70–80% of our customers end up being SuccessFactors customers as well. But the idea really is to strengthen each other. And I think SuccessFactors sees that we bring value in terms of the analytics perspective, in addition to all the data that they hold in their platform. So that's where the benefit is. I think the other main category also are things like assessment providers. As you know, there are many in the market. They've been around for many decades.
Yeah.
So we also provide assessments as part of our platform. Right. But not really to compete with those guys, but really to complement. Because, for example, in most organizations, they don't do assessments on everybody. They could be expensive, right? But then they could be a common denominator that can be used across the board, and that's where we come in.
Cost saving for companies, because essentially you're spot on. You can't afford to do it. So a lot of times you do it with senior management or middle management, and then you kind of not do everything. And even then you do it selectively, because it sometimes costs 300 to 500 or something just for a single assessment, maybe more if it's a senior management person.
Correct,
so
absolutely.
What you're saying is your solution then helps customers save money from an assessment standpoint.
Yeah, and there's another benefit, which is to solve the fragmentation problem, because the reality is most companies use many different assessments. They could be assessing different things, or they could be assessments for different people. For example, the directors get an expensive one, and then managers get a slightly less expensive one. So when we can onboard all these into our platform, it becomes a common denominator that HR can use to understand everybody across the board, and then the models can work really well.
And your models are learning models. So essentially, the AI, it gets better as you run more candidates through the system.
Yes, absolutely. So just now Pete mentioned, we look at Nestle, 90+% of the time we hire the right person for them. The idea then is to look at how people perform 6 months, 12 months down the line and use that to refine the models. We also get a lot of collaboration with customers whereby the managers, in addition to providing performance data, they also have to provide a lot of reviews and ratings, like, do people exhibit these behaviors as we predict? When I interview somebody, I find them energetic. Why is that the case? And then we can break them down into smaller traits. So a lot of collaboration with customers in order to train the models, but thankfully they do see a long-term benefit.
Yeah, and also now you've got experience curve effects because there's enough throughput through the system, and the system is now becoming better and better.
Could I just add one
Sure.
point, Brian? Just to put the point of again competitors and how Pulsify is different, right? So again, from a layman point of view, if you're looking at hiring somebody, what are his hard skills relevant for the job? Has he got industry experience? Has he got the right mindset? Is he a cultural sync to our company? All these are different data sets, right? And all these data sets need to be used when making a decision on who's the best potential hire. There is no platform in the world that puts together all this data.
Okay.
Right? So yes, that's again the difference between Pulsify and the rest of the competitors in the market.
Okay, let's zoom out a little bit and talk about HR transformation, because that's been a buzzword for the last couple of years, and people have done it to various degrees. Now, looking at your regional experience in terms of all your customers across Southeast Asia, what do you think are the common struggles and challenges that businesses face when they really they decide, hey, we need to transform ourselves from a HR perspective?
Yeah, actually, before we get the transformation, Pete, we have this view on a bigger problem. Maybe you can share that.
Yeah, so actually when you talk about transformation, so let's give you a point of view, Brian.
Okay.
If you talk to any key business leader and ask where his focus, priorities, and budgets go, most leaders and companies would focus and invest in what they call investable outcomes, right? So I'll focus to increase my revenue, for example, right? Or I'll focus on a better product team to be able to build a better product, right?
Yes.
But what a lot of leaders fail to recognize, or actually do recognize, is that to be able to build great products or to build great sales, you need a great team. It comes down to people. Then ask the leader, okay, so how much focus and priorities and budgets do you put on people? Actually, the focus may not be as high as sales or product,
Correct.
let's say, for example, right? And that's where we actually think the focus should change, because it's all about people. So I think that's the biggest tip or ask that we have of business leaders, is really get to the foundation of things and really transform your organization by understanding it's all about people. And if you want to help understand your people and how they can be better for your organization, that's how companies like us are there to help.
And I think, Pete, that's a very good point, because a lot of times, and you even see this in across the region in even pretty large companies, HR is parked under the CFO. Now, if that happens, then you understand that organization doesn't really think that the people are the mission critical thing. Otherwise, that HR director person sits at the same level on the C-suite, just like he or she would in any multinational. Now let me ask either of you gentlemen, what do you think HR leaders are most concerned about, especially as a result of this pandemic?
I've actually spoken to a bunch over time. And actually, I think there's a good half of HR leaders who really want things to go back to normal, right? Which is go back to how things were. But there's also another half who really appreciate how the pandemic has accelerated a lot of transformation within HR that's taken a long time. So very basic things like working from home, remote, things like that are really, they've been there for a long time but not really embraced, and now people realize how powerful that is, right? Even though unfortunately it's been enforced because of the pandemic. But a lot of that also then comes down to using more digital tools and being more data driven. And with that data, we can make a lot better decisions. And back to the conversation about transformation, it's not an overnight exercise. I think a lot of it is about helping people to get better in areas they need to get better, and also sometimes refreshing the blood within the organization. And a lot of that is difficult to do at scale if we didn't drive it with data, if we only did it with gut feel and manual decisions. So I think this other half of HR people are really excited about the promise of that. And unfortunately, I think as an industry, because it's half-half, we're not going to see everything move really forward. There'll be some organizations who move a lot faster than others, but I think this is an opportunity. The organizations who pull ahead will be so much better than the peers who choose not to, right? And I think that's exciting for us to be able to partner with those that want to. But from a vision perspective, we want to improve, change the world like many startups do. We really hope to be able to partner and handhold those organizations who are even more conservative.
Now, Jay and Peter, final question. And this is really targeted at HR leaders as they embark on their HR transformation journey, or put a real focus as a CEO, put a real focus on improving their people and also their culture within their organizations. What 3 lessons would either of you perhaps share with HR leaders to help them in this journey?
One lesson for entrepreneurs and business HR leaders alike is the tip, maybe not say lesson, but really think big. Because if we don't think big, we'll never be able to do anything different from what we're doing today. And as entrepreneurs, for example, a company based out of Southeast Asia, our vision was to go global, right? And of course, right now, I won't say we're global, but definitely we've got global customers and we're expanding out the region really fast. So thinking big and doing it actually is possible, right? And for many business leaders and HR leaders, same thing. They could be starting their journey with a lot of existing mechanism or baggage even, right? But without that ambition, I think a lot of it is not possible. But I think the good balance there is for many organizations, they do have a support system to achieve a lot of that a lot easier than, let's say, a startup like us who's got to build everything from scratch. Yeah. So for me, I think big is one big one that drives me and the team.
And Peter, any thoughts from you?
So I will do a contrary point of view, which is think big but look small.
Okay.
And the bottom line is, if you want to really think big, you need to understand what the problem is and what the opportunities are, and only data can tell you that, right? And that's where we help in understanding people using data, and we help you look small to be able to achieve your big.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Brian. It was an honor and pleasure.
We've been speaking to Jay Huang, co-founder and CEO of Pulsify, and Pete Yoong, the founder of Pulsify, on BizTech's Jobs and Careers show. I'm Brian Fernandez. Check out www.biztech.asia for business and technology conversations. We're also on our LinkedIn and Facebook pages, so please subscribe and like our various platforms. Thank you very much for tuning in.